You are listening to the Joyce Aldrich Show from Toronto, Canada. Paranormal and UFO edition. Yes, we call them UFOs.
Starlight, starbright, first star I see tonight. Might be Venus or some unknown light, hovering a bit too low tonight. Starlight and street lightning, where's the balloon? Or something strange out of a five-star cartoon.
Hello, my friends in the sky. Where did you go? I miss you. Do you miss me? Nobody here believes a word I say. When will you come back and take me away? Flying saucer in the sky. Where will you take me tonight? Flying saucer in the sky. Where will you take me tonight? On the planet you live, are you ever alone? Is anyone? Is there any such thing as loneliness? Is anyone's life so meaningless? The closest thing to a friend that I ever had, I wished you could understand. Flying saucer in the sky. Where will you take me tonight? Flying saucer in the sky. Where will you take me tonight? I feel like a stranger. I feel alone. I feel invisible. Not in a good way, but in a bad way. I feel like a misfit, like I'm living another life. When you come back next time, don't leave me behind. Flying saucer in the sky. Where will you take me tonight? Flying saucer in the sky. Where will you take me tonight? Where will you take me tonight? Where will you take me tonight? Where will you take me tonight?
Oh, and that's Flying Saucer with Astronaut Wife, and very apropos for this evening's, for today's, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is, for this program tonight, because my guest tonight has been investigating UFOs and the paranormal since 1986, when he discovered that his family, friends, and coworkers were having a dramatic unexplained encounters, which he tries to explain. But, and that really is a very caring person, because, a lot of people just, what's going on? They wouldn't really believe what's going on. But since then, he's interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomenon. He's a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, that's MUFON. And he's also a ghost hunter and a paranormal researcher and an author of more than 30 books. He's prolific, over 100 articles on UFOs. He also writes science fiction, and he's been featured in so many magazines and on so many programs. And I'm going to put his bio in the description box because, to be honest, we could be here all night talking about his many accomplishments, which are many. So I want to welcome Preston Dennett here to the program, and I'm so happy to have you on here. And boy, oh boy, what a story we have to tell.
Thank you, Joyce. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Pretty synchronistic how we came together.
Well, it was weird. Like I was telling you that, you know, I couldn't sleep. This is just a couple of weeks ago, right? It wasn't that long ago. Actually, it's just a week ago, because about a week ago, and I couldn't sleep, and that happens to me a lot, and I have a little bit of insomnia, and then I thought, oh, I'll look at something on YouTube, listen to it and fall asleep to that. And I didn't get to sleep for quite a while because I was scrolling through my YouTube, and there it was. There was I'd never seen this podcast or this video before. It was about people who had onboard experiences. I thought, well, I've had onboard experiences. I'm considered, I guess, people call abductee, contactee, but I prefer to call myself an experiencer because I did experience some things. And I thought, oh, look at that. Maybe there's something in there that relates to my experience. Maybe there'll be some similarities. So the first, the second, third story went by, and I was fascinated. I wanted to listen to all of it because I want to say your production values are wonderful and your storytelling is amazing. The way you recount the stories, not just because the fourth one was mine. I thought from Canada. Well, oh, that's good. Someone from Canada, good. And then I went, that's me. and I'm looking at the graphics and I'm thinking, that's really good. I thought, wow, this is amazing. And the reason I can say that you recount the stories beautifully, and people go on YouTube. They've got to go to your YouTube site. I'm going to actually tell them to go there now. That would be Preston Dennett, and that's Dennett, like Bennett, but Dennett. And you're going to find tons of amazing videos there. Programming is amazing. All these UFO encounters, the way you document everything is beautiful. And my story was exactly right. You didn't embellish. You didn't change anything. It was exactly right. And I thought, wow, if he's doing that with mine, he's doing that with everybody.
Hey, so glad to hear that, Joyce.
No,
I do work very hard at this.
Well, I can see that. So, So anyway, it's and the thing that you also do in your books, you have so many books out there, all different aspects of the UFO phenomena, and it's really important that you're documenting these because I'm sure a lot of those books are out of print now, and would be lost. The stories would be lost if you didn't tell the stories again.
Right. Yeah. So much of this information just gets lost to posterity. And it's such an important subject, and it happens to so many people that I really think this subject deserves a lot more attention than it's getting. Mm-hmm. And it's darn interesting. And there's no need to sensationalize or exaggerate because the facts alone are just astounding.
I would say so. Well, there is attention now with the congressional hearings that are happening in Washington, thank goodness. And the recent one, and again, they'll talk about all kinds of different people and everything. I go, I'm just listening to the stories, I'm just, that makes sense. And the one thing that I found in this last one, they're talking a lot about UFOs that go in the water, under the water. And that's a big thing now. And even here in Toronto, in Lake Ontario, people have seen them go down into the lake several times. This is a common thing. And my understanding is that we've maybe explored maybe 5% of our oceans, and we have no idea what's there.
Yeah, UFOs are finally getting a lot of attention because they haven't for years. People just weren't really talking about it. I started getting cases right from the beginning in the late 1980s.
Yeah.
Because I lived in California at that time, off the Southern California coast. Yeah. Which, for whatever reason, has quite a few cases. So, I started collecting them. I put a chapter in one of my books, UFOs over California, about ocean-going cases.
Yeah.
And that got the attention of the History Channel. I don't know how that happened, but they called me up and I ended up doing deep sea UFOs,
Wow.
one of my very wonderful TV opportunities. They come along every now and then.
Yeah.
And that really just kind of kicked it up into high gear. And I became, in a way, kind of the go-to guy for a lot of people who were looking for information on USOs.
On
And ended up,
USOs, yeah. So
yeah,
that's unidentified submersible objects, or what's the S?
yeah, unidentified submerged, either
Submerged.
works.
Yeah. Okay.
It's the same as a UFO, let's face it, because
Yeah.
they can go in the water, in space, through our atmosphere.
Well, they can. They can go anywhere, anywhere, anywhere.
Yeah.
That's about it. I know that. Yeah, and so yeah, you had written that book and about them going into the water, because now, of course, they're talking about the tic tacs that we're seeing and the different orbs or actual craft that people have seen going into the water and coming out of the water at a great speed as well. So do you have a theory about that?
I've
Or
kind of
or
around a bunch.
some thoughts about it?
Yeah, I've certainly speculated a lot about it, but I try to stick to facts as much as possible.
Yeah, well, that's what I
And I
like
love
about you.
I love speaking to the contactees. And I use the word experience here too,
Yeah,
because the word abductee, I don't know if that's really accurate. Some experiencers find it a little offensive.
yeah.
So in fact, I won't use the term abduction generally. I call it an onboard experience. So that's neutral.
No, that's what I liked
But
about it. Yeah, on board, and the thing,
yeah.
it does run in generations. It really, really does. Have you had a lot of cases that you've been looking at, familial,
Oh yeah.
experiences? Yeah.
That's more the world. Well, that's one of the reasons your case kind of, I was like very much intrigued by it. I found it, I think it was either in Albert Rosali's book, Humanoids Among Us, but then I found a full write-up in what's his name?
Jo-
Robert Colombo?
Yeah, UFOs over Canada. Yeah, John Robert
Yeah.
Colombo. He's a like you. Now he's retired, but like you, a collector of UFO and poetry and the paranormal and ghost stories, and he has a whole very similar and also very factual and just the facts, ma'am, and just recounting, just relating it. And I think that's really, really important because
Yeah. He did a great job covering your case. I'm like, oh, this is interesting.
well, he had
And I mean,
mhm. Go
there were
ahead.
just some details about your case that really intrigued me. And one was, you had relatives who'd had encounters. And I thought, yeah, that's what I see with most people. It absolutely is generational. It's in my family, by the way. And
I was going to ask because yeah, because you did have family members and friends who had strange encounters, and that was sort of started the ball rolling for you back in '86. So, what happened? Tell us your story.
I was so skeptical, Joyce. I didn't believe in this. I really didn't.
Please
Which is
don't let it be
funny.
real. Please don't let it be real.
Kind
No,
of.
no.
Yeah. I thought that I had a handle on things. I was very scientifically minded. And one day I was probably 13 years old. This is like 1978,
Mm,
thereabouts. My older brother Mark comes running into the house saying he'd seen a UFO.
mm-hmm.
I'm like, Mark, sure you did. Go away. They're not real. I don't believe you. But that all changed. Thankfully, I was pretty young. So still time to change, I guess. I was 21 years old, 1986, and there was a sighting over Alaska.
Right.
Now, you may have heard of it. It's a pretty famous sighting. Captain Kenju Torochi, JAL Alaska Airlines,
Uh-huh.
on November 17, followed a UFO, or were followed by one, two of them actually, for almost an hour.
Wow. Yeah.
It was a really amazing case. And I remember watching the news report on this thinking, that poor pilot, he must be deluded. Is he lying? Why would he go public with a story like this?
Yeah, he'll be grounded. Yeah, but and a
Yeah.
lot of pilots were grounded if they came forward with that kind of information because
Yep.
they were
And
doolally.
he was. He was absolutely grounded, I found out later.
Yeah.
but it was intriguing because, they showed his picture and I'm like, wow, he must have a reason for saying this. Could he have possibly actually seen something?
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I went to my brother Mark. And finally, I was ready to listen. And he described this amazing encounter, which I suspect might have been more than a sighting, Joyce, because I'll tell you why.
Yeah,
He
go
was
ahead.
very close to it, maybe 200 feet away, 100.
Wow.
And it was your classic saucer, little lights around it, a dome on top,
Yeah.
clearly metallic. It was silent, and he chased it in his car. Now, he had two friends with him. I know them both, Greg and Phil. I ended up talking to them.
Yeah.
They verified his story. But what was really intrigued me was, he's chasing this thing down Reseda Boulevard. This is right outside of LA in California.
Yeah.
And it would stop for them and wait for them to catch up. And then right when they get real close to it, it would scoot ahead again.
Like a cat. Cats do that.
Right?
Yeah.
And so to me, that's like, well, who's ever in that craft is aware that they're being observed. Yeah. It was kind of playful with them. And this, I don't often talk about this, but I may as well. Mark, my brother, found something in his arm. It was a couple of years later, maybe.
Yeah.
And it was just this little kind of foreign body, this little matchstick kind of object in the inside of his elbow.
Mm-hmm.
His wife, my sister-in-law, who is a contactee, by the way.
Go figure.
Right?
Yeah.
But she's like kind of just holding his arm. She's like, what's that, Mark? And he's like, I don't know what. And there, I palpated it. I actually took him to a doctor because you could feel this thing right beneath the surface of his skin.
Oh, yeah, you got to check it out.
Yeah. So I took him to a doctor who happens to be a MUFON field investigator like me, but a medical doctor, right? And
Handy.
his eyes went so wide. Yeah,
So
an MD.
Yeah, so what happened with that?
Well, he wanted to bring Mark to the office and get X-rays and do the whole deal. And Mark, who is shy and really doesn't want to be involved in this, said no, and basically ran away. And then one day it just disappeared. It was gone.
Yeah,
But
right.
There's no entry wound. There's so I don't know. He had some UFO dreams. His wife is a contactee.
Yeah.
My other brother also married someone who saw grays very close up right after having a UFO encounter. Her son, my nephew, had humanoids come into his room shortly after seeing a UFO.
Huh.
My other nephew, my little sister had a missing time encounter. And of course, hearing all this, I'm losing my mind, finding out I've had people in my family. I'm like, what is going on?
Exactly.
And I found I had friends who had encounters, major encounters. And one definitely involved missing time. Brought it up at work. That was a huge mistake because that collapsed my belief system when the lady I worked next to for, a year or two said, oh, yeah, me and my whole family have seen UFOs. You should talk to my daughter. She just had grays come to her room. Oh my God. And she remembered it fully, no hypnosis or anything like this. She remembered being pulled on board. So that's kind of how it, rolled out for me. I ended up having my own sightings. I had a missing time encounter. And over the years, I had a number of encounters and finally did have an onboard experience, fully conscious. So, yeah.
What was that like? What was that like for you? Like,
it was beautiful.
Did you? Yeah, I don't find it. I didn't find it bad. I didn't find it horrible. I was lying there, and they leaned over my little 6-year-old self and said, "You are a custodian of the planet Earth."
Wow.
Like that's like a strange thing to tell a little kid, but it sticks, So
Exactly. And that's kind of the message they give people.
Yeah,
For me, it was, I interviewed a lot of people, and I certainly don't want to gaslight them and say, this was good for you when they're terrified out of their minds.
Oh no, it's not. No, it's a.
You know what I mean?
Not, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's different. I mean, you're meeting entities that don't look like us, and mine were like the
it
mantis
can be very
types.
scary for people.
Yeah.
I totally get that, but I had the advantage of knowing this subject very well. And what happened to me is I was actually asleep and I'm dreaming, as we do.
Uh-huh.
When suddenly I wasn't dreaming anymore. I was being pulled through the wall.
Oh,
And I'm like, oh my gosh. And here's the weird thing, Joyce. I remembered this happening before as it happened. The feeling of being pulled up, this kind of beam.
yeah.
It's a very electric feeling.
Well, people don't realize that well, it just goes to show us that we're not 3D. We're not just 3D. They're showing us that we're so much more. We're multidimensional. We're just stuck in this physical idea.
Yeah, off on a tangent, but right when I started investigating UFOs, I started having major out-of-body experiences,
Oh,
astral projection.
wow.
So I don't think that's a coincidence.
No, I don't think so either. Well, no, one experience I had later in life, in my 30s, my husband wasn't in the room with me. He was on a trip, with a school trip, because he was a drama teacher, and I heard all of a sudden there was a light, and then I heard this really weird sound. I can actually make it if it doesn't bother anyone. I can remember so well when like a like that kind of electronic sound. And
Right.
before I knew it, and I had by the way, I had a metaphysical bookstore where I sold a lot of UFO books and healing books and all that kind of stuff, and artwork, in the town I lived in. And and then all of a sudden, I'm standing in my store. I'm standing in my store. And
Wow.
it's dark. It's dark. It's middle of the night. There's the police station across the street, and these two men come into my my store. And I look at them, and I hate to say it, they look like they were Mormons. They had black pants and white shirt, no little tag, no name tags on, but they were really good looking guys. I will tell you, they were good looking. They didn't look like the Greys and the Mantises or the Reptilians or whatever. And I said, and I looked at them and I said, "Why am I here?" Meaning in my store. And they said to me, "Why?" I said, "Why am I here?" And they said, "You are here to communicate with the people of the planet Earth." That's what they said to me. And I said, I said, "But I am from Earth." Then he went, and then I heard all this big no, really loudly, and then again, and they dropped me in my bed, spread eagle, on and I about 2 feet above my bed, and I bounced, and it was 5 a.m, and I had missing time.
They do that. I think it's to make people remember. They'll drop you from a foot above your bed and
Bounce you.
yes, I've heard that a number of times.
Have you? Because I thought, how can that be real? How, like you said, you had that was a real experience for me, and I thought, was I just imagining that? But I don't think so, And then I started I painted this thing on the side of the counter of my store, which is this head with 3/4 black with 1/4 light on it, and I was told that was the darkness of the earth right now, and there was only a little tiny place that was light, and that we had to get rid of the darkness. So, it sounds so airy-fairy, it sounds so...
There's truth to that, though.
I know, but, you tell people that, and they go, "Yeah, right, are you some new age person?" No, I'm not. It's just,
That's the message people get overwhelmingly.
It is it? 'Cause, yeah.
Yeah. My own experience was different from a lot of people in that,
Yeah.
I was pulled on board and they laid me out on this table and were kind of examining me
Uh-huh.
just to make sure I was okay. And I'm trying to sit up because, I want to see where I'm at because I knew what was happening. I recognized this. I'm like, I'm on board a craft.
Mm.
And it's funny because I've interviewed so many people and you get this kind of idea of what it would be like. And then you're there and you're like, wow, well, this is a little different.
Yeah.
Because, I saw the whole round room and the floor and it's very clean and, not a whole lot in there. But
Mm-hmm.
there was this lady next to me who clearly wasn't fully human. I would describe her as a hybrid,
Yeah.
human and gray,
Mm-hmm.
but just beautiful. I mean, really just exquisite with
Yeah.
these large blue eyes that kind of wrapped around, very tightly curled blonde hair,
Nice.
very, very thin, wearing a snow white jumpsuit, very skin tight. And she kept saying, "Are you okay?" And I'm like,
Aw.
"Yes, I'm fine. I'm fine. I want to get up." And she's like, "No, no, no. let's just make sure you're okay first.
Oh,
I'm like, listen, I'm fine. Because, like I said, I remember going up that beam, which is
yeah.
very electric. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
very electric
How did it
feeling.
feel? Did you feel like electricity through your body, or like a shock, or what?
Yeah, it felt, it wasn't like an electric shock, but somewhat similar. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't unpleasant, it wasn't painful, but it was definitely a very loud and feeling of energy and buzzing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, I finally convinced him, I'm fine. I'm like, okay, get up. And I jumped up and I looked around and like, there's little grays there.
Yeah.
Like, wow, look at that. And her,
Aren't they
the
cute?
hybrid lady.
And the
Yeah,
hybrid lady. Well,
there were some
yeah.
taller ones who did make my heart jump up in my throat for a second. I'm like, whoa. But really,
I've seen tall ones too, but they were really tall and skinny. It was weird, and they came into my room. It was a shadow. They were like shadows, And then you wonder, did I actually see that? You question, you second guess yourself all over the place because you think you got a big imagination or something.
that's natural. I think most people who have this kind of encounter do that. But I did see a very tall gray, and she was just the epitome of grace and beauty and
Oh,
elegance.
they
And
do. Mhm.
I walked up to her. She's, she's wearing a smock, kind of a gown.
Mm.
She tilts her head forward and to the side and looks down at me with this tiny little smile,
Aw,
closed mouth smile,
yeah.
and says to me telepathically, she's like, so, is this what you thought it would be like?
Wow.
And I said, no, it's much better, because it was. I felt this incredible feeling of just nurturing and warmth and peace and love and wisdom. It's just a wonderful environment. And I asked, could I explore? Can I look around? And she said, go ahead. And yeah, I went to the windows, of course.
Mhm, of
Looked down,
course.
and there's the there's the Earth way down there. And I recently saw a rocket launch, and when they were about 500 miles up,
Wait,
I think that's what it was.
recently you saw something?
Well, no, I'm just looking on
Oh,
TV because
oh,
I'm trying to
oh, oh,
estimate how high up this
oh, oh,
craft
oh,
was.
oh, oh, I see. So recently you saw a rocket launch, and then you think, oh, I got it.
And
Sorry, duh. Okay.
and they're showing the Earth below,
Mm-hmm.
and showing exactly how high up this rocket is. I'm like, there, that's the point. Because I saw the Earth and I could see the curve of the Earth, but it wasn't like a globe way off in the distance.
No,
We were just above the planet,
right.
and it was like, wow.
Well,
And
a
I
lot
walked
of.
over to the other side and I looked at it, and then we dropped down to the planet in 1 second.
Ooh.
It was like, wow. In fact, one of the ladies standing next to me, she went out. She screamed out really loud
Oh,
in pleasure,
did you have a whoopsie in your tummy, like a butterfly, or
No,
yeah?
no,
No.
I could not feel any acceleration or deceleration or no movement.
Okay.
Not until we kind of stopped right above the surface of the planet, maybe 10 feet up,
Uh-huh.
5, and the craft rocked slightly. I'm like, wow, well, I could feel that.
Yeah.
And then we shot back up,
Oh,
and we're back where we were.
I
It
gotta.
was it was a short experience, maybe 5 minutes, but I
Oh,
sure got a feel for it.
oh no! I got the biggest smile on my face. You know, Preston, it makes me so happy. Now that I'm going to just not go back to the congressional hearings for long, but my ex-husband, because he's my ex-husband, he said to my daughter, he says, "Well, now your mother will be vindicated," because because he traveled with me when I was going all I came out. I was one of those people who came out of the UFO closet, and I was on the Deanie Petty show and the Christopher Thomas show, and because my GP psychotherapist who was involved with the Intruders Society with Bud Hopkins, he said, yeah, you've got a similar, case like this other woman in Germany, and would you like to talk to people about it? And I said, yeah, I would like to, because I think we should normalize this, like tell people this is not crazy stuff. And this is back in 1989 when you started,
Wow.
when there was that great big push, all of a sudden it was coming out with Communion and with Bud Hopkins and Intruders, all the books were coming out and people were
Exactly.
starting, yeah. So that's when that's what happened to me. So I ended up, just quickly, Dr. Gottlieb said, I just got a call from the Jerry Springer show. I said, oh, yeah. This is before he went, really crazy, right? And it was
Right.
almost a normal show, almost. He said, they want to talk to you. And I said, okay. And it's really funny. 3 weeks before that, my 9-year-old son said to me, I wonder what it's like to eat Chicago pizza. And I wonder what it's like to ride around in a limo. It was so random what he said, Well, within a month, we were riding around in Jerry Springer's limo, and we were at Eduardo's eating Chicago pizza.
Precognition.
And my son swears to this day, no, Mom, I just told you things that happened that I just because I want you to hear things, like I want to make you happy. I just tell you stuff. But he I'm sure he had experiences. But the thing is, though, the Jerry Springer show did not go through. They brought in a psychologist from Austin, Texas. They brought in Bud Hopkins. And Bud and I went to the museum and had a long talk and walked through the museum and everything. And it was wonderful to meet him. But they tried to get something going on, some negative stuff between my husband and I. And my husband said, well, who am I to not believe her? And they said, well, you know what? They canceled the audience. They canceled everything, and they said, you guys are really nice people and you really believe what happened to you. So we're not going to put you through this. And they sent us back.
Wow.
Which was amazing. It was a good thing. It was a hand of God or finger of whatever,
Yeah,
but
it's funny how the media tries to spin things.
Well, this was
I've learned that the hard way a few times.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, what's happened with you?
Oh, I remember one time I was, doing a research into a wave of sightings in actually my hometown, Topanga Canyon.
Uh-huh.
And the news was interested, and they're like, "Can you take us out and show us, a few spots?" I'm like, "Sure."
Mm-hmm.
And I was pretty young, I'm in my, mid early 20s
Right.
at this time, and took them to a spot where a UFO had landed. Well, kind of hovered a few feet above the ground.
Yeah.
And the news guy is there, and he's looking at the gopher hole in the ground. He says, "Oh, are those the landing traces?" And I said, "No, those are gopher holes." Kind of confused, like why he's, because he knows.
Right.
He's like, "Well, would you mind putting your hand in there and saying they're landing traces?"
Oh no, yeah.
And looked at him like he was. I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that." They tried really hard, like just
tried to
point
set
at
you
it.
up, yeah.
And I refused to do it. So, and I've, since I learned a lesson there. Thankfully, it wasn't a hard lesson because they didn't catch me that time.
No.
But, a few times I've been edited to say pretty much the opposite of what I was trying to say.
Mm.
They make you say things over and over and over again until they get what they want.
Exactly. Oh yeah.
But I will say that's pretty rare. I've been treated pretty well on most shows, so
Yeah.
I don't want people to get the wrong idea.
No, you actually, it's quite a prestigious list of places where you have appeared coast to coast, and of course they would treat you very well there, and and the History Channel, they've done some pretty good work actually. They've done some pretty good documentaries and things. So I would love to see that one. When did it air?
Gosh, it was a long time ago for
Oh yeah.
the deep sea UFOs 1 and 2, I would say. Oh gosh, let me think. 2000 and something, 6 maybe.
Yeah, it's got to be
So,
out there somewhere.
um,
Yeah.
I've done a number of TV shows over the years, encounters and sightings and Ancient Aliens. Finally, after calling me like 5 times, finally it went through. As you said,
Yeah.
sometimes they don't go through.
I like that program actually. I used to enjoy that one. It was it seemed to be pretty well researched. I don't know. I enjoyed it though. I liked it a lot.
Well, the deep sea UFOs was fun with the History Channel. They flew me out to Catalina, or no, took
Yes.
the little sea cruise over there,
Yeah.
and it kept me there for 3 days and interviewed me for hours and hours and hours, and maybe used 3 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm like, wow, this is frustrating. But it did really well. They called me back for a second episode, and that led to a third appearance on UFO hunters, I think it was. So I certainly can't complain. And it gets the word out on this subject. And it
Well,
really sparked up a lot of witnesses coming to me to report, their own encounters with USOs.
well, it gives you
But I
credit.
think we should just call them alien, extraterrestrial craft. I don't like the term UFO or
Well,
UAP,
what
especially.
what do you like? Do you like that term UAP? I like UFO. you,
I prefer UFO.
that's
or
why I put that in my intro. And yes, we call them UFOs.
that term is, I think we're stuck with it. And I'm okay with that. But
Yeah,
at some point, I think we should just call them extraterrestrial craft. I think that's what we're dealing with here.
yeah, or alien craft, because they are alien to us. They are, whether they're from here or somewhere else. Have you ever been? Do you know where they're from? Has anybody really told us? I don't know. I can tell you I do not know. Mine were kind of like the beautiful they're very beautiful the way they moved. He's like I figured mine were more like the praying mantis types, but grays, but praying mantis like with the way they moved. But they're so beautiful in a lot of ways. Like you said, with that very very tall gray. But where are they from?
Yeah, well, having interviewed a lot of people, this is a question people will ask, and they can be somewhat evasive depending, I think, on the
Yeah.
person and their level of fear. But I would get the term Orion every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
And then I
Mm-hmm.
finally interviewed my favorite contactee ever,
Yeah.
because she has had experiences her whole life. Dolly Saffron is her name.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
wrote a book called Symmetry about her experiences. Joyce, by far and away, the most extensive case of contact I've ever had the privilege of researching
Wow.
or, frankly, even reading about.
Yeah.
But they took her to their planet in the Orion system.
Okay.
And it's funny, she pointed to, I think it's the third star in the belt, and right below that,
Well,
which was,
the Giza pyramids are in the shape of the belt of Orion, as far as that's concerned,
right?
right? And that one shaft points to Sirius. So we got Sirius B, we've got Orion. I mean, hello.
So
How?
that comes up in a number of contactee cases I've
Mm-hmm.
researched and read about. I think that we can safely say that certainly is one of the places they come from.
Yeah.
But as near as I can tell, it's quite busy out there. We're certainly not the only planet with life on it. I think it's probably a lot more populated than most people realize or think.
I do agree with that. I do agree. I'm wondering why. I mean, my last contact was when I was about 43, 44. Have you found that a lot of people have said the same thing?
It depends. There's kind of a bell curve.
Mm,
Rarely is it a one-off.
no.
So that does happen. For most people, it's, 5, 6, 7, they'll have some contacts up through their teenage years, and it might stop for a while and kick up again in their 20s and 30s and kind of just sporadically. But some people have only 1 or 2 or 3 contacts.
Yep.
Dolly Saffron, it was
Yeah,
pretty much
tell me about
weekly.
that. That's a great case. So tell me what was that all about? That sounds amazing.
Yeah, she's a lovely woman. I know her well. We do a podcast together called The Light Gate.
Oh, nice.
At any rate, she reached out to me after being referred to me by her ET contacts, because she was looking for someone to tell her story and was having trouble finding a researcher who she felt was objective and truthful.
Yes.
And they said, well, try this guy. How cool is that? She
No,
told me,
that is so cool. And they know you're doing a good job. I once received a Christmas card, a holiday card, whatever. I don't know if you ever heard of. Did you ever hear of Oscar Magoshi? Maybe not,
I
but
don't think so.
that's okay. But he used to apparently what he would do, I knew him. He worked for CBC. He was a technician, and stuff like a cameraman, whatever. So he was like a regular dude. But when they want to integrate into Earth society, he would help them get dressed right and do all that kind of stuff, And I got a card one year that said the Space Brothers were happy with my job that I was doing, But I'm sure they're watching all of the experiencers. We all have a place here, a mission, I just feel like I'm
Yeah.
just waiting for something, not Godot, but it's just there's a kind of there's an anticipation, but a good anticipation, but it's like a timing thing, and you're wondering when, and in my lifetime or what, what happens.
Well, I think everyone plays a role in sort of helping to get the word out. I think that is one of their main goals. With
Yes,
Dolly Saffron,
tell me.
starting at age, she had in contact her whole life, and her mom was going crazy. She kept disappearing from the house,
Oh my gosh.
and Dolly herself, was having a bit of a hard time trying to figure out what's going on. And at age 14, she had a very close-up sighting. There was a craft right outside her window. She could see the little guys looking down at her.
Hmm.
And next thing she knows, her room is filling with light, and it's morning. She's like, "Oh no, I'm not having missing time again." She sat down and meditated and was able to recall that, yes, she, of course, was taken on board. And not only remembered being taken on board, but all the other times she had been,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and really just had this amazing, how would I put it, an onslaught, an avalanche of memories coming at her. But it was such a cool encounter because they, gave her the tour of the craft.
Oh,
They
amazing.
brought her up to the pilot room, the helm,
Yeah.
sat her in the
Yeah.
seat, took her to Saturn.
Oh,
Boy, when she told me that, I'm like, wow, because I had just interviewed Joe Gardner, a Virginian contactee. He had described the same exact thing. He was 13. No, he was 12. Dolly was 14.
wow.
So it's just so they took her to the moon. I've had a number of people describe that. And
That's a whole new.
basically,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we could spend the whole 3 hours on just her case. But in a nutshell, they taught her how to fly the craft. She asked, actually, and they said, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And she ended up working very closely with them for her whole life, helping as they pull people on board,
Yeah.
which is really all about healing, guiding, teaching, informing, warning, this sort of thing.
Yes. Well, I understand the implants are not tracking devices, but are actually to just like monitor our health.
Yes, I'm so glad you said that.
Yeah.
I
Well,
keep hearing that.
no, I learned that on one of your on one of your videos. I went, oh, I didn't know that. I know.
Yeah, I told
I
you
learned.
hearing that right
You
off
learn
the
a lot
bat.
on yours. Yeah. Hmm?
I was interviewing a contactee, and she asked, what's the implant for? Because they're like, we're putting something in your body. And she's like, what? An implant. What's it for? This is to monitor your health. And I got another case where they said, this is to boost your immune system.
Oh, yeah.
And another to measure the levels of pollution in your body.
Interesting.
And the more I research this, it's not mind control, it's not tracking. One person asked, is this for tracking? And they said, no, we can find you whenever we want.
Yeah, that's not a problem. That's not a problem. Oh, sorry.
So yeah, the more I research implants, that keeps being confirmed. It's really health related for the most part, though there are a few other things. Some may facilitate communication. Dolly has one in her hand that helps her to sort of connect with the craft.
Yeah.
And help fly it. So there's
That makes
different
sense.
reasons, but
Yeah.
all pretty much, good, helpful, benevolent things.
Well, I also understand that, and I can actually attest to that people who have had contact or have the experience, onboard experience, have pretty good health, and until about just shortly after COVID, I mean, I had pristine blood. Everything's fine. My physicals are always great. I'm just taking vitamins and that's it, and I'm 70,
Nice. Yeah, I've noticed that too. I interviewed a guy, his wife is disabled, and so he has to work real hard to take care of her. He went to the doctor. The doctor was amazed. He's like, I don't know what to tell you, because he was in his 70s.
Yep.
And they said, you have the lungs and the heart of a 17-year-old.
Yep.
You're just fine.
Yeah.
Some people do have, you mentioned insomnia. That is pretty common among contactees. Some have extreme light sensitivity. So that is something that does turn up. But yeah, they enjoy excellent health by and large. Some people have had problems here and there, which I'm not so sure is necessarily because of the ET contacts, because they will, Now, I wrote a book, UFO Healings, or The
Okay.
Healing Power of UFOs.
Yes.
And it's so amazing, Joyce, because I laid it out in black and white. You cannot deny this.
Mm-hmm.
I have over 300 cases from pretty much every major researcher. I won't say every, but pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
David Jacobs, John Mack, Bud
Yeah.
Hopkins, bless him. I got to meet Bud Hopkins too.
What a great guy.
Really, yeah, a wonderful man. And I was always curious because he never, ever mentioned UFO healings. Like, he's got to have cases. And so I cornered him at a conference in San Diego once.
Yeah.
I'm like, Bud, let me, tell me, have you ever run into healing cases? He's like, oh, yeah. Yeah, we've got quite a few, and I'm very encouraged by them. And ETs do seem to be very interested in the lovely aspects of being human.
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely, I have healing cases. I'm like, okay, good. Because, most do. Barbara Lamb, Edith Fiore, Tim Beckley, Brad Steiger, you name it, Yvonne Smith, Timothy Good.
Mm-hmm.
All the major researchers have multiple cases, in fact. So I can tell you absolutely, without speculating, that this is one of the main reasons people are taken on board. It's really a doctor's checkup, is what it is. In terms of being physically examined, or just assessing your health, and often, fixing things here and there.
Well, my mom had contact when she was a little girl. She had orbs coming into her room and playing with her. She called them, playing with her and stuff like that, just dancing around. And my mom, when I don't know if, it's a crazy thing to talk about, because I wonder if this also happens with experiencers. But when I was about 9 years old, and my brother's 4 years younger, so he was about 4 or 5 years old, and my mother said, come into the living room and sit on the couch. I want to show you what I can do. And she pushed away our Danish modern coffee table, and this is, I guess, about 1964 or something like that. She pushed it away, and she laid on the floor, and then she just levitated in front of us about 3 inches off the floor.
Wow.
I
I
know.
was so hoping to talk about this too.
Oh
I wrote
my
a book on levitation, so I'm super interested in it.
Well, the thing is, later, okay, so I'm 9, okay, do I remember? So anyway, she got remarried later, and in the 80s, again, there's funny 80s, she tells me, remember, Joyce, when I told you to sit on the couch, and I pushed the table away and I levitated in front of you? Oh, that wasn't a dream. Okay. She said, I did it again today. I levitated in bed after Al went to work. I thought,
Wow.
okay. And then she had gangrene in her toes from cellulitis, and she grew her toes back as baby toes with nails on them, just by yeah. And stuff with ETs too, they can heal you like lickety split, like they did on Star Trek with the little tricorder with the machine or whatever. So anyway, I'll let you. I ramble, so you don't. So.
Oh, that's so interesting, Joyce, because I had a family friend who levitated as a child. And she's a contactee. She doesn't really talk about it, but she's had experiences. And found another family friend, a friend of a friend, really, who had a levitation experience, and ended up writing a whole book about it. But it's absolutely connected to contactees, because Whitley Strieber, well-known contactee, had this experience.
Well, did he
Stephen
levitate?
Greer reported this. Yeah.
Okay.
Jacques Vallée had a case.
Did he do it?
I started doing.
Yeah. Did he do it on demand? Like, my mother just decided to do it and levitated in front of. Like, it was like, look what I can do. It's bizarre.
Dolly Saffron. I asked her about it when I was doing. I did hundreds of hours of interviews with her, and I'm researching all these different aspects. And so I asked her, I'm like, I don't suppose you've ever levitated. She's like, well, actually, yeah, I used to do it quite a bit when I was a kid. And when she was little, she could absolutely do it on demand. And a few instances as an adult where it pretty much saved her from falling down the stairs and things like that, where she basically just floated down.
Yeah. Well,
I found a whole list of contactees who've levitated.
there's a whole
Absolutely.
there's a whole lot of floating going around with us, right? There's a lot it's not like something new. But what about bilocation? Because my mother bilocated on a few occasions that people noticed she was somewhere else and she bilocated. And I was even seen bilocating, and I didn't realize it. I was, and it was by police officers. I was at a the Taste of the Danforth, the Greek festival. I was there on a Sunday, and I was dancing around in front of the band, having a great time. And these two police officers, these two women, said, "Oh my gosh!" She said, "You're back here again. You had such a great time on Friday." I said, "I wasn't here Friday. I wasn't." And the same thing happened when my mother was. She was singer MC at the Brunswick House, and the person who was pinch hitting for her, because she was supposed to be in Las Vegas, she called out to my mother, "Where, Irene, you're here." And my mother went to the washroom, and she never came out. And she said, "Why didn't you say hello to me?" No, I was in Vegas. That kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, bilocation is so interesting to me because if you read like about the saints, there's many cases of Padre Pio would do this all the time. He was seen all over the world, but never really left his church in Spain.
No.
His is a really prominent example of that. This is a natural human ability. This is one of the reasons, one of the ET goals, I should say, is to
Yes.
wake us up to our own. I don't like to call them paranormal or supernatural or even
No.
psychic abilities. They're natural human abilities. We can all do this.
Yes.
So I think that's one of the reasons why I'm like, wow, I'm having these out-of-body experiences right when I'm starting to research UFOs and starting having my own experiences, which I thought was coincidental, but now,
It's
no, I don't
not.
think so,
Well,
because
go ahead.
there's not a contactee I've interviewed with any extent of experiences who doesn't report things like healing abilities or mediumship
Yeah.
or levitation or precognition
Or psychic
or,
abilities. Yeah.
yeah, off the charts. It's
Uh-huh.
amazing.
Well, you know what? We may have nailed something here. We may have, and I'm sure you've already had this conversation. You've written the books, and by the way, you got to go to Amazon for Preston Dennett, Dennett, and it's funny that you got ET in your name, but anyway, duh. Anyway, but yeah, definitely. Pick up the books. That's what it's all about, and read about, and go to the YouTube channel as well. But the whole idea that all of this contact is really they're helping us to come to a level where maybe we can actually make physical contact on the planet with them once we reach a certain place, like where we're able to do all these things. Maybe that's why we're not having much success. Like they're not landing on the White House lawn,
Well, they did try. Yeah,
Yeah, I know
1952.
that's right with Val. What was his name?
I mean, there was a Capitol flyover,
Yeah.
and we basically sent jets after them, and they got a very cold reception.
Yeah.
But I think ultimately, because contactees have been told this, that it is our tendency to, shoot first, or the war and
Yeah.
aggression, the divisiveness, the hatred, and all the stuff that's going on with us. We're clearly spiritually lacking in many areas,
Yeah.
and that is the major obstacle to open official contact. They've said this to many contactees. I've heard it 100 times. So I think ultimately that's why they're trying so hard to just wake us up to our. Because if we had telepathy, just think,
yeah.
if we all had telepathy, how different it would be. We could elect world leaders who might have our best interests in mind,
Yeah. Well,
and weed out corruption.
well, one of the things I think my son had contact was because he told me one morning that he had met with ETs and that they had taught him mind talk. He called it mind talk. And they made him,
Nice.
yeah, and they sent sentences to him, and he had to repeat them back to him, to them, that kind of thing, But you ask him that nowadays, he would,
No.
like he says, I was standing at the window in the middle of the night, and I saw an upside down rainbow, and it went swoosh,
Oh,
And then another thing, where he was eating his bowl of Cheerios, and he said, Mom, he said, I think we've been here for a very long time, and that we're all God. He was 4 years old. Yeah. And Bud Hopkins said, like, even though we remember being, contacted or, have our experiences at 5 or 6, he said, they usually are taking you from babies.
Yeah, it's my experience as well, in terms of interviewing people.
Hmm.
What's amazing is some contacts, a lot of don't remember
Of course not.
before age 4, but some do. There's a good number of contactees who are remembering things that mainstream science says you should not be able to remember.
Hmm.
I mean, all the way down to a few months of age.
Yeah,
Well, let's face it, past lives.
absolutely.
Uh, so
Reincarnation.
there's,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. We can't discount any of that. And that's the thing, like, okay, I'm Jewish. We believe in the transmigration of souls. At night there's a little prayer we say, like, please forgive me for any transgressions I may have done in this transmigration or any other transmigration in other lifetimes. Like, we're asking forgiveness for things we did in other lifetimes. People don't realize that, and it's a very, a lot of faiths or belief systems believe in that, but it's been completely kicked to the curb. We're not allowed to think
Which
about
is
reading.
unfortunate
Oh,
because
so unfortunate.
it certainly does come up in a number of contactee cases. I was just looking at one the other day
Mm-hmm.
where two little brothers had contact, and one of them was shown their past lives.
Oh,
Uh, So absolutely, that does come up in a number of ET contact cases. They will say, "Oh yeah, reincarnation is real. This is not your first incarnation."
no, no,
And if you study past lives, it's amazing because all of us, to some extent, I think, are influenced by, the events in previous lifetimes. And you can see it with people. They'll have
I,
an interest in Japanese food or, or really good at piano or
all of
something.
a
It's like,
sudden
where
they're,
does this come from?
yeah, natural abilities. Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It is amazing. And also, the other thing is that I've been studying a little bit about, well, it's something I really I was thinking about, not studying about it, but our astrological charts, when we were born at that time, that is all planned. That's a planned thing, it's not something that's random. Because we have to come into this world, we have a mission, we have things we have to learn to build our souls, to grow ourselves and to develop, and in our astrological charts, it's all there. And I found that with people who have mental health issues or even physical issues, it shows up in the chart. Like, a moon in Scorpio, which I have. And I'm very transparent about it. I've been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. If you read the diagnosis for that and you read the moon in Scorpio, it's identical description.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
I'm thinking if psychologists would have an astrological chart printed for their patients, for their clients, look at that and then use it as a tool to help them. They wouldn't be in years and years and years of psychotherapy. They say, hey, this is what you got to do. This is what you need. And I'm actually thinking of starting something like that. I'm not a psychologist, nothing like that, but sitting there and talking to people, like, say, okay, let's look at your chart.
It's funny because I was always kind of skeptical of astrology. Finding out UFOs were real kind of made me super skeptical in a weird way because I had to question everything.
Yeah,
But then one day I'm watching this TV show
yeah.
where they handed these charts to these various astrologers.
Mm-hmm.
Said, okay, tell us what you can about these people.
Right.
It turned out, and they're like, well, this is not good. This person has major problems. I think this person might be a serial killer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, yeah, it turned out that they were. And the astrologers picked up on it. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah,
wow.
it's there. It's
That's
a map.
amazing.
It's a map. It's a total map. It's a star map. Isn't that
So I'm
interesting?
still a little skeptical. I have to be honest. But
Nope,
that
that's
impressed
okay.
me.
Yeah, well, that's why I'm thinking if we took the approach, of looking at personality types, and looking at all the different aspects, because there's so many, right? There's 12 planets. I mean, 12 signs, and also the, if you're looking at the different times, if you're looking at this UFO stuff, the Sphinx, which was actually a lion's head, that was built in the age of Leo.
It's interesting stuff. It's, and I think done correctly, it's absolutely it's a valid tool to learn
Yeah,
information about a person.
yeah. I mean, to read your daily horoscope, that's not going to help you at all. Not at all. No, it becomes very kitschy and very trendy and that kind of thing. You know, it's a lot deeper than that. But yeah, it's just all it's all interesting, and I think it's all part of the same parcel where we're trying to grow ourselves. So we have, you know, it's all these are all the tools that have been placed there.
Yeah. Well, I had to look into it because starting to do UFO research, I realized very quickly that contactees, experiencers are having all kind of paranormal, what we would call paranormal experiences. So it's connected to ghosts and mediumship and astral
Yeah.
projection and levitation and channeling. And
Hmm.
I mean, I had to research angels and demons and multiple personalities. I really wanted to get a handle on what's going on here.
Yeah.
But there are weird connections. Absolutely. A lot of contactees have had a near-death experience.
Oh, yeah.
And
I
that kind of
got that.
interesting.
Hmm.
So yeah, very interesting connections. But I think as we were talking about earlier, I've kind of pinned it down a little bit. I think what happens when someone has a contactee experience,
Hmm.
and they're speaking telepathically with the ETs who do have the ability to levitate
Yes.
and telepathy and healing. You kind of vibe with them. You kind of are working with people who are very spiritually advanced,
Yes.
and that rubs off a little bit on you.
Well, it must
And
open some channel. It opens, well, you know, because
yeah,
we're cellular, yes, but look at these cells. They transfer these cells right through windows and doors and ceilings. I went up through a ceiling, and there was an apartment above us, so it was, you know, it was a couple of apartments I had to go through to get up to the top
wow.
of where we were, and you know, if they're able to change molecular structure, when they do that to us, we must be changed in some way. Something must be affected. It can't go back exactly the same way it was. Does that make
Super
s-
interesting.
does that
Their
does that make
technology, their use
sense?
of light
Oh,
is,
photon energy is big. Is big. That I that's the way. Well, they told me that's the way our space program is like. Please excuse me. You know, you really need photon power, photons. I don't
yeah,
know.
I mean, look what they can do with light. They can
Oh,
levitate a person, heal a person,
yeah.
pull you through solid objects. I mean, it goes
Mm-hmm.
on.
It's all
We
about
could learn
light.
so much from these guys.
Amazing. So tell me a little bit about the Santa Catalina thing. What kind of a lot? I remember the Foo Fighters in the war. They were seen off the coast of California, were they not? You know the
And I
Foo.
don't know that I have accounts of that. I did find very early cases in that area going actually back to the 1800s.
Yeah.
But really it's ramped up with the modern age of UFOs, 1947.
Mm-hmm.
I've got really good, solid cases in that area, the Santa Catalina Channel, of what we would call USOs, which, as I
Yes.
said, are the same thing, but
Yes.
they're seen coming in and out of the water.
Yeah.
And I was so curious about this. I'm like, because you asked this earlier, like, what, why? Well, what I found out, and this really, God bless Dolly Saffron, because she answered so many of my questions.
She
She's
is
like,
an
well, they come
amazing.
down. Yeah, she really is.
Oh.
She said, the problem is these craft are very hot. They come into this atmosphere, they're surrounded by
Ah,
plasma, and they basically are going down in the water to cool off.
that makes sense.
Yeah, and it did, because I started looking at all the cases of this. And they come down and you can hear them sizzling and steam is coming up and
Huh.
the water is bubbling. And
Huh.
yeah, I got enough cases where I'm like, okay, I think this is exactly what's going on here.
Well, that's kind of what I was pushing you for there, but like a little like what is it all about? You know, what's it all about, Alfie? You know, that makes a lot of sense. But what about submerged? You know, like underwater bases? Is there anything like that?
I tried to, build an argument, I guess, that there might be an undersea base off the coast of Catalina,
Uh huh.
and I couldn't really get there. There are some people who report, looking out the window of a UFO or what they believe to be, some sort of underground structure.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking probably what happens is they're perceiving it as an undersea base because they're in this room and they're looking out and there's water out there.
Right.
But I'm thinking that's probably what's happening. They're in a craft. Hard to say for sure, but uh, no, I don't know that there's undersea bases.
Yeah. or mountain
I
bases, anything like that? Are there any bases anywhere? Or are they just coming straight from outer space here and going back home? Like what's going on
I
there?
think so because they can travel, and you can see this. I think you actually talked about it in your case how they can travel interdimensionally
Yes,
with light,
interdimensionally. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That's what
right?
photon energy. Yeah.
Which is one of the things I'm like, yes, here I'm hearing it again.
Hmm.
Because they can cross vast interstellar distances in what would amount to moments.
Yeah.
So there's really no need for a base. I think there is evidence of structures on the moon that certainly aren't ours, and that's been verified many times by
I
many different
know.
sources. So I'd certainly would say there's something up with that. And probably one of the reasons we went to the moon was to verify that and get pieces of whatever. But from what I understand, it's not active. But no,
Like
I'm not.
it's like an ancient site, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But yeah, if they can travel an interstellar distance in moments, there would be no need for a base. In fact, it could be dangerous
Yeah.
uh, be- because I don't know that our governments really are treating this subject the way it should be treated, or the visitations. Uh,
No,
it's
because even in the congressional hearings, you'll hear people saying, "Well, is this a threat to our security?" It's always they talk about it as in, you know, is it a
right,
threat? So, you know,
which is
that's where the mindset. I
ridiculous.
know, I know, I know.
I mean, it really is. But I
If it
can
was a
understand.
threat, they would have done it by now. You know.
Yeah. Here's the ET threat, Joyce. The ET threat is to the power elite, the cabal, and their control over humanity,
Hmm.
their wealth, their power over everybody.
Hmm.
That is the ET threat. It's to them and their money.
Hmm.
I think that's why they're shaking in their boots and trying to push a false narrative here. Because if you take a good, close, objective, and I'll underline that, an objective look at what happens, the sequence of events during an onboard experience, it is not negative.
No.
It can be very scary.
Mm.
I don't doubt that for a second. It's quite traumatizing for people often. But yeah, people are healed. They'll take you down to the engine room, what we would call the engine room, and explain in detail how they operate these craft.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, it's all very, and the messages people get of every single time, it's something to do with the preservation of our planet, dangers of nuclear proliferation, the dangers of war and aggression, and greed and corruption, pollution, the destruction of the environment,
Hmm.
upcoming earth changes, societal upheavals, this sort of thing.
Yeah. And
They're very concerned about how we treat ourselves, each other, and this planet.
well, that's why they hover over nuclear sites. So they're very interested in what's going on there as well. You know.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, this is inescapable. Anyone who takes an objective look at this can only come away with that conclusion. And this is
mhm.
not speculation,
No.
it's easily demonstrable. So that's why I always question these people who are pushing an ET threat narrative. I'm like, what is up with that?
Well, yeah, I don't know why David Jacobs is so scared of like they're not going to eat us. you know, there's and of course the cattle mutilations and all the kinds of things that are out. People talk about, and it's like, oh,
That
it's
always gets brought up. And it's funny because I wrote UFOs over Colorado
yeah,
and UFOs over New Mexico, which were both hard hit by the cattle mutilation phenomena.
sure,
And Gabe Valdez and other researchers, Lawrence Fawcett, I think was his name, said it's not ET. This is government doing it. And I asked Dolly about that. I'm like, what are your ET folks say? They said it's not us. We're not doing it. This
uh-huh.
is part of the ET false threat
Right,
narrative.
right. Well, that makes so much sense, doesn't it? I mean, I know. My son's always telling me, don't just believe everything you hear. Be a critical thinker. Like where did you get your information from? Go back to the source. That kind of thing. But yeah, that does make sense.
Well, that's what I think is honestly going on. There's lots of black helicopters being seen with these events. And while
Mm,
some people do see UFOs, we have to remember Roswell did occur,
yes, it
as
did.
did, the Aztec crash and many, many others. And by all accounts, from the close to thousands of whistleblowers at this point, we have reverse engineered to some extent this technology, and things are flying around that are absolutely not ET.
And now, did we do this with or without the permission of ET?
I think to some extent, I had big questions about this myself. If the Roswell crash happened, why didn't they just scoop it up?
Yeah.
And the answer was that, well, there were too many people there at this point, and it would have created more problems to take it away than it would to just let them have it. When the universe, when the chips fall where they do, when the cookie crumbles, it's kind of the universe saying, this is an idea whose time has come. So they basically are not gifting these by any means. But when people get their hands on these craft, they can't always take them away. So I wouldn't say that it's something that they absolutely endorse, but sometimes they're like, you know what? They already have it. We're just going to have to deal with this way. That's the answer that they gave Dolly Saffron.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes sense to me. I don't think we're shooting them down because these ETs are incredibly telepathic. They know long before you press any button for any missile or any particle beam weapon. Their technology is not 1,000 years advanced of ours, or even 100,000. It's more in the order of millions. So I don't find those reports particularly credible. And from what I understand, it's the instability of our magnetic fields that is causing these craft to have accidents, because that's how they operate. And you hear this from so many contactees, that when they're traveling around our planet, they're not using interdimensional technology for interstellar travel. They're using the planet's gravitational magnetic field lines, which fluctuate wildly, especially these days with
all the
the
satellites,
solar cycle.
and in the our solar cycle, and also all the satellites up there must play havoc. I don't know. I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just guessing. If it's not the little blue planet with nothing around it, it's the cacophony of satellites, and it's just tons of them up there, thousands.
Yeah. It's far more than people realize. If you can pull up a map of Earth with all the satellites, it's like
I've seen
ants.
that. I've seen that, and I'm thinking, all we need. We're so close to not to going back to horse and carriage.
Yeah.
And
Which might not be a bad idea ultimately.
no, seriously, we haven't been this technologically advanced for very long, really. I mean, my grandfather, was born in 1900, and and my great grandmother, I knew them, and they told me how they lived, and it wasn't like this. And we've seen so many changes in our lifetime, Preston. I mean, my gosh, look what we've lived through.
Yeah, I remember when Star Trek, we're watching the little phones that show your picture and stuff. I'm like, and here we are. We all have these cell phones, and you can actually see each other's faces and talk to them.
Yeah, and when they were reading on the computer, and you think, wow, and that the one Star Trek episode where they had the guy, he had a library and everything in it, and it was books and everything. I love that. I love that. Well, the original one especially I love, because that was so prolific, amazing. But speaking of prolific, you are incredibly prolific. I'm so happy to meet you. I wanted you to come on again because we can talk about all kinds of stuff. Whenever you're welcome on the program anytime. I know I'm not the most articulate of beings, but certainly to have to spread the word, because they did say, I'm here to communicate with the people of the planet Earth. So I figured this must be it. It must be it.
Well, I would love that, because I could talk about schoolyard UFO encounters. I wrote a book on that.
Oh, yeah.
Or all the healing cases, and we didn't even touch on astral projection. Whew, the stories I got, man, oh man.
Okay, well we'll just have to keep talking. That's all, and also let's talk about the podcast you're doing with oh gosh,
Dolly Saffron.
Yeah. How can people watch that?
Thanks, Joyce. We are on UPRN Radio on YouTube and other platforms. It's called The Light Gate.
Mm-hmm.
It's live each Monday evening, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And Dolly's a very experienced contactee and a little bit of a researcher. And I'm definitely a researcher and a little bit of a contactee. So we make kind of a good team. And we bring on people who are researchers and experiencers and other people in the field, and just have a lot of fun, like you say, spreading the word and trying to educate people and spread the love.
Absolutely, and more of the same. There's room for, people don't realize there's room for everyone to do what they're meant to be here doing, and
Right.
And we've got to embrace that, absolutely. And there's a lot of stuff out there, but just like we started the program, I was in my bed, I couldn't sleep, and I just sort of scrolled through, and there you were. I mean, you happen upon these things when it's meant to be.
That's why I love synchronicities. It's like the universe shouting out, "You're on the right path. Good job." And to hear that was such a delight. I was just tickled.
Well, and it's almost like a psychic thing too. I have a very fun story, it's an interesting story just to end with, about Betty Stewart Dagenet, who is, yes, Betty Stewart, the rendezvous story in UFOs over Canada. Do you have that book?
Do, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I know who you're talking about.
Okay. So Betty Stewart, she's the one who helped me wake up to my extraterrestrial experiences. She says, "Oh, well, you had missing time. You had contact." And then she got me in touch with Dr. David Gottlieb. Well, anyway, she was writing a book called Rendezvous. And and she didn't want the book to come out ahead of time, any excerpts from it, because John Robert Colombo said, because we used to go to her symposiums and everything, UFO and symposiums, and he was a big supporter of hers, and so was I. And he said, "Can you give us an excerpt from your book?" And she said, "Well, I really don't want to do that until it's published." And this was back in 1991. Anyway, it was all handwritten manuscript. Okay, she was in her 70s, early 70s, and 72, and so I said, "Well, I'll transcribe it for you. I'll type it all up for you." So I typed that story up for her and gave it and sent it to John Robert, and anyway, so it was published. And the thing is that she passed away just over a year later, okay, without having her book completely, finished.
Oh.
When she was in the hospital, John and I were there visiting her, and she said, "I would like you two to finish my book and publish it." And I said, and because John has a publisher, and we'd love to do that, Betty. What would just tell us what to do, And And she told, we want you to do this. And then closer to her death, she's just talking about, we just need love and everything, And we didn't hear anything else from her about the book. Then her son, I'm sorry, I'm not as articulate as you. I hum and haw, and I stutter.
Right.
You are so amazing. I don't hear any ums or hums or anything or A's or nothing in your. I think you're amazing. You're so articulate. You must be a Gemini. I don't know. Anyway, but the thing is that no. Anyway, we want to write the book, but we didn't know where it was. Okay, so her son was working down in the States, Donnie Dagenet. With the U.S. government, and he did not want this book published at all. I don't know why. I'm not putting the two together like a conspiracy thing, but he didn't. His mom was just too out there for him, if you know what I mean. Didn't want the family name, or I don't know what it was. I can't say it. Whatever his reasons were, they were. Anyway, didn't want it published. So we're at the funeral, and we're at a crematorium. And John and I are standing at her coffin, paying our last respects. And I said, John, you know where the book is, eh? He said, where? I said, it's at the foot of the coffin. It was in the foot of the coffin. I said, so what do we do? The
was really there?
It was really there. They stuffed it in the family had taken the manuscript to make sure it wasn't published. They put it at the bottom of, at her feet. Okay,
wow.
In the coffin, and we're looking at each other. And said, what do we do? And we said, we can't do anything, can we? We can't do anything. And we sort of see the coffin going down into the crematorium with the manuscript, and Buddy, there it went. So
God bless her. Wow.
God bless her. So thank goodness we do have an excerpt. So read that. And actually, I'm on David Cherniak, who was the producer who produced the Man Alive series. I'm going to send you that because that shows the time that she meets Dorothy, the one that she had encountered in her shed in Bond Head. It's a very interesting story, a great contact story that you need to know. Yeah.
Amazing. Wow.
It was, yeah, sorry I've stuttered throughout that whole thing, but I don't know, it's incredible. But thank you so much. Yeah, so people, I want my listeners to go to the Amazon books. That's Preston Dennett, that's Dennett, and Preston, of course, is Preston, and go to the YouTube channel. Oh my gosh, she'll be up all night watching things. I can't get over the number of videos you have up there, and they're so great. You have such a great delivery. It's well, they have to go and see it for themselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out with a song, because we came in with a song. Did you like that first song, Astronaut Wife?
I did. It's nice to hear songs with UFOs in it.
Did you?
That was very good. I enjoyed it.
This is a different one. Okay, so well, it's summer, so I decided we're going to have a little summer song. So we're going to be going out with 26 miles across the sea, and that's about Santa Catalina. You ever heard that song?
I know that song. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great song. So we're going to go out with that, and people definitely read his book about underwater alien craft going underneath Catalina. It's in the Santa Catalina area. So, but hang on, right after this, what else? We'll after the recording we can say our final goodbye. Well, not final goodbyes, but Anyway, so
Yep.
Thank you again, Preston, for joining me here on the Joyce Aldrich Show, and more of the same. We're going to talk about a lot of things and get that information out to people, because we got to know. The truth is not just out there; it's here. It's on the planet.
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, so many things to talk about. So here it is, 26 miles across the sea, and this is the Four Preps. I think this is 1965.
26 miles across the sea, Santa Catalina is awaiting for me. Santa Catalina, the island of romance, 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 romance. Water all around it, everywhere. Tropical trees and salty air. But for me, the thing that's awaiting there, romance. It seems so distant, 26 miles away, resting in the water serene. I'd work for anyone, even the Navy, who would float me to my island dream. 26 miles so near yet far, I swim with just some water wings and my guitar. I could leave the wings, but I'll leave the guitar for romance, 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 romance. 26 miles across the sea, Santa Catalina is awaiting for me. Santa Catalina, the island of romance. A tropical heaven out in the ocean, covered with trees and girls. If I have to swim, I'll do it forever, till I'm gazing on those island worlds. 40 kilometers in a leaky old boat, any old thing that'll stay afloat. When we arrive, we'll all promote romance, 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 romance. 26 miles across the sea, Santa Catalina is awaiting for me. Santa Catalina, the island of romance, 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 romance. 26 miles
You are listening to the Joyce Aldrich Show from Toronto, Canada. Paranormal and UFO edition. Yes, we call them UFOs.